The light catches the facet, sending a cold shard of brilliance into my eye. It sits there, impossible and gleaming, on her finger. My breath jams in my throat, a physical blockage. The air feels thin, suddenly sharp with the scent of her perfume and something else, something metallic and wrong, like blood or rust. I stare, my focus narrowed to that single point of impossible light, everything else in the room dissolving into a blur of soundless confusion. My sister, Sarah, smiles a tight, brittle smile, and I know, with a certainty that rips through me, that the world I thought I lived in is gone. It's just gone. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know to share these stories. Life had this quiet rhythm, you know? It wasn't loud or dramatic, just steady, like a slow, deep breath in and out. Mark was the anchor in that rhythm. 10 years. A decade built on coffee in the morning, shared silence in the evenings, the comfortable weight of his hand on my knee under the dinner table. He wasn't the whirlwind romance type. He was the solid ground. That was his appeal. He was reliable, predictable, safe. The ring. My engagement ring. It wasn't huge, not a rock designed to blind passers-by. It was elegant, classic, a single perfect diamond set in platinum. Mark had chosen it himself, he said, spent weeks looking. He slipped it on my finger in the rain under an old oak tree, clumsy and nervous and so utterly sincere. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a promise. A decade of promises, whispered and lived. It sat on my left hand, a constant, silent witness to the life we were building, the life I believed in. My sister Sarah. Sarah was different. She was fire and chaos, brilliant and messy. We were close, bound by shared history and the complicated tangle of family. Growing up wasn't easy. Our parents, well, they weren't built for permanence. Sarah had dreams, big ones. Law school. It was her burning star, her way out. But money was always this tight, suffocating blanket. I worked, saved, pieced things together. I believed in her dream as much as she did. More, maybe. I set up the anonymous scholarship fund, funneled every spare cent, every bonus, every tax return into it. She knew someone was helping. She called them her angel investor, but she never knew it was me. It was my secret, my gift to her future, quiet and unconditional. It meant sacrificing my own little luxuries, pushing back my own goals, but seeing her thrive, seeing her get closer to that dream, it was enough. More than enough. I never expected anything in return. It was just what you did for family. For her. So life was good. Stable marriage, a sister chasing her dreams thanks in part to a secret I held close, a quiet contentment settling in like dust motes in a sunbeam. It felt earned. Peaceful. I didn't see the crack forming. Didn't hear the low rumble beneath the steady rhythm. The disruption wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, creeping unease. It started small. Mark was distracted. Late nights at the office became more frequent, less explained. He'd jump when his phone buzzed. He stopped leaving it lying around. Little things easily dismissed. Stress at work, I told myself. Big deal pending. Men handle stress differently. I made his favorite dinner, ironed his shirts just right, tried to be the steady presence he needed. Then came the day I noticed the ring was gone. I took it off before showering, habit. Left it on the little dish on the bathroom counter. Later, getting ready to go out, I reached for it. The dish was empty. My first thought was panic. Dropped down the drain? Wiped off the counter by accident? I searched everywhere. Pulled the drain trap, crawled on my hands and knees, checked the trash. Nothing. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Mark wasn't home. I called him, trying to keep my voice light. Hey, have you seen my ring anywhere? I think I lost it in the bathroom, he was curt. No. Can't talk now. Big meeting, click. The dial tone was a flat, dead sound. I searched the whole apartment. The cold knot tightened. It wasn't just lost. I knew it. Not a logical thought, just a visceral certainty. It was gone. And he hadn't sounded concerned. Not at all. A few days later, My sister Sarah came over. Casual visit. We were chatting in the living room, laughing about something silly, the knot in my stomach temporarily forgotten in the warmth of her presence. She gestured, smoothing her hair back, and that's when I saw it. The flash of light. On her finger. My ring. My engagement ring. The world didn't just tilt, it shattered. The sound drained away. Her voice was a distant hum. My eyes locked onto the diamond, the familiar setting, sitting there as if it belonged. On her finger. It was like looking at an alien object that had stolen the identity of something sacred. It couldn't be. It couldn't. But it was. The size, the cut, the tiny, almost imperceptible scratch on the band near the bottom. I knew that ring better than I knew my own face. Sarah. My voice was a croak, barely a whisper. Where did you get that ring? She froze. Her smile vanished. Her eyes darted to the ring, then back to me, and a look I couldn't decipher crossed her face. Guilt, fear, something akin to shame. She mumbled something, too low to hear. Sarah, look at me. Where did you get that ring? I stood up, my legs unsteady. The air was suddenly thick, hard to breathe. She swallowed hard. Someone gave it to me. As a gift. A gift? My engagement ring? Given to her? By whom? The possibilities flashed through my mind, each one more sickening than the last. Mark? It couldn't be. Why would he give my ring to my sister? It made no sense. Unless it wasn't my ring anymore. My early struggles were steeped in disbelief and avoidance. I couldn't confront Mark directly. Not yet. I needed to understand. Asked Sarah again, gently this time. Who gave it to you, Sarah? Was it a boyfriend? She avoided my eyes. Just someone. Someone who cares about me. Her voice was flat. Defensive. It wasn't like her. Sarah was open, expressive. This guardedness was a wall. I started watching Mark. Not in a paranoid way, at first. Just observing. The phone still buzzed, he still jumped. He was home more often, but his presence felt absent. He'd look through me, lost in thought. I tried to talk about the ring casually. Still haven't found my ring. So strange, he shrugged. It'll turn up, no offer to help search. No concern. The man who'd been so nervous proposing acted like he'd misplaced a sock. It was chilling. The more I watched, the more the pieces didn't fit. His work stories were vague. His explanations for being late didn't hold up under gentle questioning. A cold dread began to settle in my bones. This wasn't just about a ring. This was about a fundamental shift in the person I shared my life with. Sarah was acting weird too. She canceled plans, didn't return calls as quickly. When we did talk, she steered the conversation away from anything personal, anything about the ring. The wall was up. Higher now. It hurt. My sister, my closest confidant, was hiding something from me, and it involved my husband and my most precious possession. I started digging. Quietly. Carefully. Looking through Mark's office, his computer when he was out. At first, I was just hoping to find an explanation for the ring. Maybe he was having it cleaned? Repaired? A secret anniversary gift? The hope dwindled with every unanswered question, every locked file, every evasive answer. What I found instead were fragments. Emails about asset valuation, phone numbers I didn't recognize. Spreadsheets with numbers that didn't relate to his job. They were coded, complex, but they screamed secret, they screamed plan. The challenges kept rising, each one a heavier stone piled on my chest. Mark grew colder. Our conversations became transactional, clipped. He was impatient with me, irritated by my presence. The comfortable silence turned hostile. The empty space where the ring used to be on my finger felt like a physical ache, a constant reminder of what was missing, what was wrong. Sarah's distance became unbearable. It felt like I was losing both of them. I confronted her again, harder this time. Sarah, please. Tell me about that ring. Did Mark give it to you? Her face crumpled. Not just guilt this time, but pain. Deep, raw pain. I can't, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Not yet. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She wouldn't say more. She ran out, leaving me alone in my apartment, the silence echoing with her whispered apology and the deafening absence of the truth. The feeling of being alone was crushing. My husband was a stranger, my sister was hiding from me, and the symbol of my marriage was on her hand, a grotesque mockery. I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. The more I tried to understand, the more convoluted and terrifying the situation became. The financial documents I found were more explicit now, talk of liquidity, restructuring debt, exit strategy, exit strategy. That phrase burned into my mind. He wasn't just having an affair. He was planning to leave, to abandon me. And he'd used my ring, my symbol of forever, as part of his plan. It was a level of cruelty I hadn't thought him capable of. It broke something inside me. Not with a crash, but a quiet, internal crumbling. The midpoint shift hit me like a physical blow, a cold, hard truth to the gut. It wasn't just about the ring. It was about money. It was always about money for Mark, underneath the veneer of stability. He was in deep debt he'd hidden from me. The asset valuation was about assessing what he could salvage before filing for bankruptcy or disappearing. And the ring. The ring wasn't a gift to Sarah. It was collateral. Or worse, payment. Payment for what? For her silence? For some service she was providing him? The thought was vile, unspeakable. He was using my sister, my Sarah, in his sordid escape plan. The man I married was a monster. A cold, calculating monster. At the same time, in a separate universe, it felt like Sarah was having her own seismic shift. She'd gone home after our last painful encounter, the guilt gnawing at her. She told me later, much later, how she'd felt sick looking at the ring, knowing it was mine, knowing Mark had given it to her under some twisted pretense she couldn't quite grasp yet. She started going through old papers, sorting, trying to distract herself. And she found it. Tucked away in an old box of financial records our parents had left her, a stack of correspondence from the university, referencing the anonymous scholarship fund. It listed the payment dates, the amounts, the bank they were sent from. My bank. My savings account. Sarah pieced it together. The timeline matched her years in law school. The amounts matched the anonymous deposits. The bank, it was unmistakable. Her angel investor wasn't a distant, benevolent stranger. It was me, her sister. The sister whose ring sat heavy and wrong on her finger. She cross-referenced the account number, found old statements I'd accidentally left at our parents' house years ago. It was all there. Every sacrifice I'd made, every extra shift I'd worked, every luxury I'd foregone. It had gone into her dream. Thousands. Tens of thousands. My secret, silent gift. Her discovery coincided exactly with my own horrifying realization about Mark. As I was staring at spreadsheets detailing Mark's debt and plans to escape, she was staring at bank statements detailing my years of sacrifice for her. The universe has a cruel sense of timing. The deepening crisis was the confrontation with Sarah, but it wasn't what I expected. She didn't call. She just showed up at my door, looking pale and shaken. The ring was gone from her finger. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She held out her hand, and there it was, nestled in her palm. My ring. I know, she choked out, tears streaming down her face. I know about law school. I didn't say anything, just looked from the ring to her face, my heart aching. Why, she whispered. Why didn't you ever tell me? It wasn't about that, I said, my voice thick with emotion. It was about you. Your dream. She started to sob properly then, deep, wrenching sounds. And I took this. From you. From him. She thrust the ring into my hand. It felt cold and heavy. He told me he needed me to hold on to it for him. That it was for something important. He said it was just a placeholder. He never said it was yours. He swore it wasn't important to anyone else right now. He swore. And I believed him. She looked at me, her eyes full of anguish. He used me. He knew I was struggling, he knew. I don't know what he knew, but he twisted it. He made it seem like he was helping me, like this was some kind of partnership. My mind reeled. A partnership? With Mark? What kind of partnership involved my engagement ring? Was she involved in his schemes? No, looking at her, the genuine horror and pain on her face, I knew she wasn't. Mark had manipulated her. He'd given her my ring under some false pretense, making her complicit without her knowledge. He'd used her like a pawn, just like he'd used me. He needed cash. I said, the words flat. He's in debt. He was trying to figure out how to leave. The ring, it wasn't a gift, Sarah. He probably wanted to sell it. Or use it as leverage. He used you to keep it quiet. Keep it hidden from me. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She staggered back, covering her mouth. He would do that?
To you?
To us. He already did, I said, looking down at the ring in my palm. It wasn't just a symbol of love anymore. It was a symbol of betrayal, of manipulation. But now it was back in my hand. And I knew everything. About Mark's debt. About his plans. About how he'd use Sarah. The crisis deepened as I absorbed the full scope of his treachery and Sarah's unwitting involvement. Mark was operating under the assumption I was clueless, ringless, and soon to be discarded. He didn't know Sarah had the ring. He didn't know she knew about the law school money. He didn't know she'd returned the ring and revealed everything. He was walking into a trap he didn't even know was being set. A cold calm settled over me. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but it was overlaid by a sharp, steely resolve. No more confusion. No more hurt. Just action. He thought he could discard me? Use my most precious possession? Use my sister? He thought he could walk away with everything while leaving me with nothing? He was wrong. So profoundly wrong. The turning point wasn't a single dramatic moment, but a quiet internal hardening. I looked at the ring, no longer with sadness, but with a tactical gaze. It wasn't just a diamond, it was evidence. It was leverage. It was the key to dismantling his entire scheme. I had the truth, I had the ring, and I had my sister back. Sarah, shattered but resolute, sat with me, listening as I explained everything I'd found. The debts, the exit strategy, the cold calculations. Her initial shock turned into quiet fury. She hadn't just been manipulated. She'd been used in an attack against the sister who'd sacrificed so much for her. Her loyalty, once tested, solidified like steel. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice low and firm. "We wait," I said. "We let him think he's winning. We let him make his move. And then, we blindside him." The planning was meticulous. Cold. Satisfying. We used the information I'd found. The names, the dates, the coded language. Sarah, with her sharp legal mind honed by the education I'd funded, saw angles I wouldn't have. We consulted a lawyer, quietly, discreetly. Armed with Mark's financial precariousness and his clear intent to abandon debt and assets, including the ring he thought he'd cleverly stashed, we prepared. We documented everything. The missing ring, its reappearance, Mark's financial records, his coded communications. The law school funding became a quiet, powerful counterpoint, a demonstration of my character versus his. He was trying to paint a picture of me as a dependent wife who wouldn't know what hit her. We were preparing to show the reality. A woman who was far more resourceful, more sacrificing, and infinitely more intelligent than he ever gave her credit for. He finally made his move weeks later. It came in the form of legal papers. Divorce. Presented cold, clinical, outlining a financial settlement heavily in his favor, based on skewed asset values and ignoring his hidden debts. He assumed I would be shocked, devastated, compliant. He assumed I had no idea about the money, about the ring, about the depth of the hole he was in. He assumed I would just sign. The climax was not in a courtroom, not yet. It was in his lawyer's office. A sterile, cold room, designed, I'm sure, to intimidate. Mark sat across the table, looking smug, confident. His lawyer, a sharp-suited man with eyes like chips of ice, laid out the terms. I sat beside my own lawyer, a quiet woman who listened with a serene expression. Sarah was there too, my emotional and strategic backup, her presence a silent statement. They finished their presentation. Mark leaned back, a condescending smile playing on his lips. "So," he said, looking directly at me, "I think this is more than fair, given the circumstances." My lawyer nodded. "We've reviewed your proposal," she paused, her voice calm. "We have a counterproposal," she began. Not with flowery language, but with facts. With numbers. She detailed his hidden debts, citing specific accounts and transactions I had uncovered. His smug smile faltered. She presented the evidence of his planned asset concealment. His eyes widened. Then she spoke about the ring. The missing ring. "My client's engagement ring," my lawyer stated, her voice clear, "a significant marital asset, disappeared from the marital home shortly before these proceedings began." Mark shifted, clearing his throat. "It was misplaced," he said, trying to sound casual. "I'm sure it will turn up." "Actually," my lawyer said, picking up a small velvet box from the table, "it already has." She opened the box. There, on the black velvet, lay my ring. It glittered under the harsh office lights, a beacon of truth. Mark stared at it, his face draining of color. He looked from the ring to me, to Sarah, his eyes wide with shock. He hadn't known I had it back. He hadn't known Sarah had told me. His entire strategy relied on me not having that ring or the knowledge of where it had been. He thought it was still stashed away, or maybe even sold by now. My lawyer continued, outlining how the discovery of the ring, combined with the evidence of his hidden debts and plans, painted a very clear picture of fraudulent intent. She spoke about asset concealment, about financial deception within a marriage. The charges she outlined weren't just about a fairer divorce settlement. They were about potential legal repercussions for him. Serious repercussions. Then she added the final blow, a detail Sarah had helped orchestrate. She mentioned a specific, large sum of money that had been quietly moved from a joint account years ago, supposedly for a joint investment that never materialized. Mark had lied about it, said it was lost in a bad deal. It wasn't. I knew where it went. It was the final, largest payment into Sarah's law school fund. My lawyer looked Mark's lawyer dead in the eye. Given the extensive evidence of Mr. Mark's last name, financial deception, she said, her voice gaining power, and in light of his clear attempt to conceal significant assets and escape substantial debt, our counterproposal is not just a division of assets. It's a restructuring that protects my client from the fallout of his illegal activities and secures her financial future entirely independent of his. She laid out the terms. They were brutal for Mark. Not just splitting assets fairly, but assigning him responsibility for all the hidden debt, compensating me for the emotional distress and financial risk his actions caused, and ensuring I kept the significant assets I was rightfully due, assets he was trying to undervalue or conceal. It was more than I would have ever gotten in his original, fraudulent proposal. I wasn't just getting a fair shake. I was getting everything I deserved, everything he tried to steal, and leaving him to face the wreckage of his own making. He was utterly blindsided. His face contorted, his eyes flashing from panic to rage. He looked at Sarah, then back at me, a silent accusation in his eyes. How could I? How did I know? How did I get the ring back? How did I turn his own game against him? He sputtered something, tried to bluster, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm, silencing him. They needed time to confer. They hadn't seen this coming. Not the level of detail, not the evidence, and certainly not the return of the ring acting as proof of his deceit. The aftermath was quiet, clinical. Mark's lawyer knew they were beaten. The evidence was too strong. The narrative was too clear. My calm, factual presentation contrasted sharply with Mark's spluttering panic. He had underestimated me completely. He had seen me as the quiet, steady wife, easily fooled, easily dismissed. He hadn't seen the woman who'd quietly funded her sister's entire education through sheer will and sacrifice. He hadn't seen the woman who could dig, who could plan, who could wait. He signed the agreement eventually. He had no choice. It wasn't the settlement he wanted. It was the settlement he deserved. It left him with the mountain of debt he'd hidden and a fraction of the assets he'd tried to salvage. The man who thought he could walk away clean was buried under the weight of his own deception. Sarah and I left the office together. The air outside felt clean, sharp. We didn't speak for a long moment. Then, Sarah reached out and took my hand. "I'm so sorry," she said again, her voice soft. "About the ring. About him. About everything." "It wasn't your fault, Sarah," I said, squeezing her hand. "He used us both." She looked at the ring on my finger. I had put it back on. It felt different now. It wasn't just a symbol of a marriage that had failed. It was a symbol of resilience, of truth, of a sisterhood that had bent but not broken. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "Rebuild," I said, looking out at the city. The steady rhythm I'd lost was gone, maybe forever. But in its place, there was something new, something stronger. A future I hadn't planned, but one I would build on my own terms, with eyes wide open. The quiet sacrifice for my sister's dream had inadvertently given me the tool, the knowledge, and the ally I needed to fight for my own future. He tried to take everything, but in the end, he gave me the means to win more than he ever could have kept. The ring is still on my finger, a constant reminder, not just of the betrayal, but of the quiet strength, the hidden power, and the bonds that truly matter. It shines, not with the light of a naive promise, but with the hard, clear brilliance of truth. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.